Welcome, impactful parents. Today we're going to talk about how to talk to your kids about politics the right way. Hello, my name is Christina Campos. I'm founder of The Impactful Parent, and I help parents of school-age children who want to be one step ahead of their kids to turn their chaos into connection with their adolescent. I'm a mom of four, a teacher that's taught every grade from preschool through high school, and today I help moms and dads like yourself to navigate that exhausting, confusing, frustrating, but rewarding world of parenting. So welcome to The Impactful Parent. And today I have a special guest. Her name is Lindsey Cormack. Lindsay is the author of a book called How to Raise a Citizen and Why It's Up to You to Do It. She is an associate professor of political science and the director of diplomacy lab at the Stevens Institute of Technology. Now, I'm happy to have Lindsay on the Impactful Parent stage today to talk to us about how we should be talking to our kids about politics. Because guess what? The schools really aren't anymore. So that means it's up to us as parents. Let's see how we need to do it right. Hi, Lindsay. Welcome to the Impactful Parent stage. I'm really glad you're here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk with you.
All right, let's get started. Can you please provide me an overview of the importance of discussing politics with kids, whether they're 6 or 18, especially in the world today? Because I feel like parents are either at one extreme or the other. They're either, I'm not going to talk about it, the schools are going to do it, and politics is a taboo subject in our house, or the children are immersed in whatever politics that the parents are immersed in. But there's hardly anything in the middle.
I feel like I kind of see similar things in the students that I have, but I think the taboo part is actually pretty problematic. I don't know anyone who likes how our politics feels or functions right now, but that's not going to get better unless we're willing to break this taboo and talk about it. I kind of think about it like a medical emergency. Like if you have something going wrong medically, you're going to talk to someone about it and seek other opinions and try to figure it out together. And we're in like a little bit of a civics emergency, but if we're unwilling to talk about it, nothing's going to get better.
Some parents, on the other hand, are taking the other extreme and really immersing their kids, and everybody has an opinion. Many parents want to influence their children with their own opinions because, well, frankly, we all think that our opinion is the right one. But what do you say to those types of parents? Are there any downfalls for this type of parenting where you're actively influencing your child with some political views?
Yeah, so we know that, we want to impart our own values to our kids. That makes sense. It's like kind of the whole enterprise is we're raising little beings and we hope that they see the world in similar ways that we do. The thing that's tricky about doing it on politics or partisanship is that emerging research shows that you're not even really going to be successful if you try it. It's like a 50-50 chance. You'll have some kids who are like, yeah, sure, I see it the same way as mom and dad, and some that will rebel and say like, no, I see it totally opposite. And so I don't like to think about raising partisans. I think the big game is raising citizens because the kids can pick the parties that they like. Parties change over time, personalities change, issues change. What's better is if we prepare them to navigate the system. And that's why citizenship is more important than partisanship to me.
What if parents don't want to impose their opinions on kids, and instead they want to encourage their child to come up with their own conclusions? How can parents do this? Are there any common misconceptions or mistakes that parents, or even educators for that matter, that they make when discussing politics with children? How can we empower our kids to develop their own political opinions and critical thinking skills while still providing that guidance and context?
So I think that's something I hear a lot in the parents I talk to is I want them to be able to come to their own conclusions. And I think that's like a fully healthy way to approach this. I think by not talking about politics, though, that doesn't necessarily give them the room to come to their own conclusion. It sort of models that like this doesn't matter or it's unimportant or you don't care about it. And so that's why I think it's important that you talk about these structures, not necessarily who's your favorite candidate or your least favorite candidate, but they need to see you caring about your community. And part of that is caring about your politics.
There's other parents that are very concerned about bad political influence. And this can range from just about anything, borderline untruthful commercials to influences from teachers and friends, TV. I mean, the list goes on. So how can we protect our kids from these influences, and what should we be looking out for?
And in terms of like protecting them from harmful things, I think that's actually really hard. We all know that we live in a very varied media diet where like you're going to see different things than I'm going to see, which is going to be different than your kids, different than my kids. And so the reason that I think it's important to talk to them about how does your government function? What are the routes of power? Is so that when they see things that seem like really extreme or something that might be really scary, they have a more rooted understanding of if that's possible, true, or likely. I think sometimes misinformation, disinformation, or false things kind of flourish when we don't have a rooted understanding of what's happening here. And so, from where I sit, I think my students are better prepared if they understand the basics and then they can kind of wade through that, like, is this true? Is this not, on a case by case in a much easier fashion.
What inspired you to do this type of work?
So I'm a college professor and I've been working with college students for 10 years. I've also been in grade school and high school and middle school doing different things. And I've seen that we just don't have the structures in place to talk about these things. When I was working at my university, something that I took on was getting all of our kids to go vote or register to vote. And we don't really care how they vote, but we want them to be able to do it. And when we take them to the polls, we'll like send them off. After they vote, we go get ice cream. But without fail, some of them get turned away because they're not registered to vote or they're not registered to vote in this county. And that's sad. They get disheartened. They're crestfallen. They don't like that feeling. No one likes being told, like, oh, you're going to go do your big adult thing. Sorry, you didn't sign the right forms 30 days ago. And so after seeing this year over year, I was like, this isn't fair. You don't turn 18 and have a light bulb that says, here's how you do all these things. We owe it to our kids to teach them how to participate in our structures and how to navigate it. And I think as a parent, I don't know any other parent who doesn't want their kids to be as powerful as possible, as rooted as possible, as aware of their surroundings as possible. And part of that is making sure that they understand the government that they're in and the politics that surround them.
Yes, I'm over here nodding my head, going, of course, right. And so many parents don't think about that, that we just assume our kids know how to do so much and we don't teach them. I know I never went to my kids and said, this is how you register, and then went step by steps on how to register to vote. I didn't do that. And that is a downfall on my parenting that I need to take responsibility for, because we do need to guide our kids. They need that help, and we can't rely on someone else teaching them everything.
Like they do. They need the hand holding because registering to vote is unlike anything they've ever done. It's like forms they've never had to fill out. Sometimes they have to have like a driver's license number they've never thought about, or the last four digits of their social security. It's like stuff that they are not holding in their brain. And so we do have to help them with this.
Can you share some specific strategies that parents can use to engage their children in meaningful conversations about these topics?
Yeah, so something that I find is a lot of parents are scared to do this because they don't want to fight. They're like, I don't want to fight with my teen. They get really angry about this thing or it really riles them up. And so the first question that I always like to ask is, what have you heard about that? And the reason that I like what have you heard is it's not asking you to defend an opinion or justify your position, because we know when we put teens or really anyone in that space, they get defensive. It doesn't feel good. There's hormonal change. They're like, oh God, I'm on trial. I better do this thing. But if you ask them, what have you heard? You just get to set the table with all the sort of content that's coming into their minds. It could be from the Twitter. It could be something a friend said, whatever. What have you heard, I think, is the best starter question. And really, it can blossom from there. There's a lot of different threads that can go down. In the book, I have like different strategies for different ages, but I think that is the most general and useful one is if you want to engage with them, don't make them defend. Don't say, why do you think this? Just ask them what they've heard on something, and then you can go from there.
And that was the next question I wanted to ask you was, how does the way we talk to our kids about politics change as they get older? For example, what's the difference between talking to an 8-year-old about politics compared to talking to a 16-year-old about politics? Are there specific challenges or considerations that we need to think about as parents when discussing politics with our kids at these different age groups?
There absolutely are. And I think there's something that we have to keep in mind at all ages is a lot of our kids are exposed to negative political talk, whether that be from the media or overhearing us talk to a spouse or a friend. And it often takes the form of something like, all politicians are corrupt, they're liars, they're in it for themselves, they're cheats. They get those negative messages. And so I think the true challenge for all of us is to find some times when we can say something positive, because it is true. If you have roads that work, water that you can drink, schools that you can go to, playgrounds that you can play on, that's local government at work. That's like some good government things happening. And so I think the first thing that we have to be mindful of is making sure they let us see the positive in politics. If we never show it to them, they're not going to look for it either. Now, when we're talking about like a young child versus an older child, I like to think about it in 3 steps. From 5 through 9, you're just sort of building vocabulary, and they really like personalities versus concepts. They want to know, what is a president? What is a governor? That's something schools usually don't tell them. What is a mayor? That's something they maybe see on a cartoon that they might watch. But giving them those just basic vocabulary building blocks so that they can build on that. When they're in that 10 to 14, you can start with the concepts. You can start thinking about, like, what does it mean to have one person, one vote? Do we live up to this ideal? Is it a democracy? Is it a republic? What are the parts of those things that matters? Those are questions that those kids can grapple with. And then I think when you get to that 15 to 19, it's really about these programmatic on the ground skills they have to know. How do you register to vote? What is the difference between a primary and a general election? What is the idea of federalism? And then I do think that every child, before they leave your home, should read the Constitution. And a lot of people think, they'll do it in schools. They'll do it in schools. On average, they don't. Many adults themselves haven't read it. It's only about 19 pages long. And it's our charter of government. And so I have a whole chapter in the book that's like, look, you have a lifetime to do this work with them. Here's how you might consider doing it. Here's questions you can ask along the way. But I think those things are sort of the pieces our kids need to know so that they can go into the world and be as powerful as possible.
Wait a second, Lindsay. Did you just say that the Constitution is only 19 pages long?
Yeah, if you print it out on like 8.5 by 11, it's not that long.
Wow, mind blown. Let's just put it that way. I always just thought the Constitution was long and boring and, complicated, all the things. But I am loving that I am learning something new from you today. Now let's get to your book, How to Raise a Citizen and Why It's Up to You to Do It. Tell me, how do you hope this book will empower parents to address the gap that we're talking about, the civic know-how gap?
I think there's 2 big things. One is, I think we need to know that it is a problem. And that's why it's up to you to do it. My daughter actually came up with that second title because a lot of us think like, schools will take care of this. They'll figure that out in schools. It's going to be fine. But what's happening in schools is for every $50 that's spent on STEM, 5 cents is spent on civics. Compared to every other subject that's taught in schools, civics gets the least amount of instructional time. It's something where we scaffold every other skill from kindergarten through 12. We teach little bits and then we build and build and build. Civics, what we mostly do is wait till the second semester of the senior year of high school and say, here's everything you need to know about government. Be gone. And so it's something where it's like, we need to realize that this is not happening. If we want to change our politics, we're going to have to take this on. And it's not me saying schools can't do this or schools shouldn't do it. It's just that they're not right now. And so parents really have to step up and take this on as a parenting responsibility. That's like my true and biggest goal, is that we sort of recognize that if we don't like the way that things are going, it's up to us to change it. And we have to start doing that work with our kids, because a lot of us were raised thinking that these conversations were off limits, like they were taboo with like sex or drugs or alcohol. And I don't think that's helpful, because we know where we're getting right now, and it's just not going to get better unless we change.
We cannot reiterate how important it is for parents to do this teaching, because it's not getting done in schools anymore. And so many parents are in the dark about that. They don't realize that the curriculum has changed since when they were kids. Because we had units on politics and civics, took a civic unit, to understand our government. And there's a lot of curriculums out there that are just breezing by, and kids are not really learning about politics the way that we would like them to be good citizens of the world. And it's so sad and unfortunate. And as parents, that's up to us to realize that, to know what our school's curriculums are. But I'm telling you, as a blanketed statement right now, parents, there's not a lot of school districts putting a focus on this. So if you have one that's doing that, kudos to them. Make sure you're telling them that you like this part of the curriculum. And more often than not, we need to be checking this ourselves, and it's not even going to be there. It's really sad.
It feels unfair to go through K through 12 and then graduate into a system that they didn't teach you how it works. That doesn't feel right to me. But I do think parents have a role in the problem that schools have. When I was doing this book, I had 5 research assistants, and we interviewed teachers like K through 12 social studies teachers from around the United States. And something that we heard repeatedly is that Teachers are somewhat afraid of talking about these things in the classroom because of the potential for a child to hear something, go home to a parent, even if it's like a very basic, here's the three branches of government, the Congress is first. A child comes home and says, like, my teacher doesn't like the president because they said the Congress is the better branch. And then that turns into like an inflamed Facebook group or emails to an administrator or principal, or even emails and harassment to the teacher themselves. So their incentives are a little bit hard right now because of the way that a lot of parenting has changed and was exacerbated in the pandemic when there was just so much oversight about what's happening in Zoom school and you can email and text your teachers all the time. So we are a part of that story. It's not just like schools aren't doing this. It's we kind of do make it hard for them to do this if they have this fear that's like looking over every time they want to talk about something.
Yes, parents need books like yours in order to help us navigate this new teachings that we have to do. So let's talk about How to Raise a Citizen, your book. What will we find inside? Where can we get it? Let us know. What are the details?
Yeah, so the book, it's set up in two parts. The first part is like how we got to this crisis, the consequences of this, like what is at stake, and the role of parents in changing this. I talk about how we got to this civic deficit, and I go through the history of schools from actually the founding of the United States through today. It's like the shortest history of schools you'll ever read, but it's like, here's how we used to do civics, here's what changed. And then I talk about why parents have to be the agents of change, and I give them sort of the constructs to do that. Like, here's how you can do it. And then in the second part of the book, it's a nod to parents who feel like they don't know enough because it's actually a primer that says, okay, maybe you feel out of your depth. Maybe you like don't know where to start. Here's the basics. Very quick. You can figure this out. And you just need to model for your kids that you're willing to learn more. And I know it's just helpful if you have a little bit under your belt. And so part one is like, here's the problems. Here's how you fix it. And part two is like, and guess what? I can help you out on the other things if you feel like you don't know them well enough.
So if we get this book, it's definitely going to help us talk to our kids.
I think so. I absolutely think so.
Where can we find it?
So it's out on August 13th, anywhere that books are bought and sold. It's on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and Bookshop and independent bookstores. And yeah, anywhere where books are, it is.
Lindsay, this episode has been so amazing. It's very informative, and I'm excited for parents to get this book because this is a great resource for parents, and there's not very many out there when it comes to this particular topic. So thank you for that. And do you have any last words for the audience?
Take it on. Be willing to take it on. That's the only thing I want people to think about is like, can I do this? Yes, you can. Even if you don't know enough, you can learn a little bit more and show your kids it's neat to care about these things. We'll all be better for it.
I'm glad you decided to be here today. Begin your Impactful Parent journey by downloading the Impactful Parent app. The Impactful Parent app is free so that you can carry help, tips, and parenting resources right in your pocket. And it's a free resource for parents. So go to your phone's app store, search Impactful Parent, and I'll be there. Or you can go to theimpactfulparent.com. And also remember that this is just a small part of what the Impactful Parent offers. Also available are online courses, parent support groups, coaching services, and of course the Impactful Parent app. So go to theimpactfulparent.com to find out more. But until next time, you got this. I'm just here to help.